Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into the world of hydrogen power. As a starting point, what is hydrogen power plant? O sa Pilipino, ano nga ba ang hydrogen power plant? Ang hydrogen power plant ay isang planta na gumagamit ng hydrogen para makagawa ng kuryente. Isang bagong ideya ito para magkaroon tayo ng malinis at sustainable na pinagkukunan ng enerhiya. Sa halip na gumagamit ng mga fossil fuels, ginagamit ng plantang ito ang hydrogen bilang fuel para makapag-produce ng elektrisidad na siyang ating ginagamit sa ating mga bahay. So take note of the word concept. So the hydrogen word here means pure hydrogen. It doesn't form any compound with other elements. Next, the working principle of hydrogen power plant. Ang hydrogen power plant ay gumagamit ng malalaking tangke ng likidong hydrogen na papasok sa libu-libong hydrogen fuel cells. So, ang mga fuel cells na ito ay parang mga baterya. So, mayroong solidong istruktura na may electrolyte fluid at dalawang terminal. So, ang mga reactants tulad ng hydrogen at oxygen ay dumadaan sa mga cells at nakikipaghalo sa electrolyte. So, para makagawa ng electrical charge at tubig bilang byproduct. So, ang tubig ay lumalabas sa isang port habang ang kuryente naman ay kinukolekta mula sa mga terminal at iniimbak sa malalaking baterya. Ang kuryente ay nananatili sa mga bateryang ito hanggang sa kailanganin at kapag kailangan na. So, ipinapadala ito sa lokal na power grid tulad ng ibang power plant. Next is battery parts and functions. So, una, meron tayo ditong electrolyte. Ito ay isang chemical na compound na nagko-conduct ng kuryente kapag natutunaw o natutunaw sa isang solusyon. Kapag nangyari ito, nagiging ions ang mga molecules ng electrolyte. Pwede itong maging likido o paste-like na substance. So, ang mga ions na ito ay nagpapadaloy ng kuryente sa loob ng fuel cells o ibang mga devices. So, halimbawa nito ay ang ammonium chloride, zinc chloride, potassium hydroxide, lithium tin phosphorus sulfide, and sulfuric acid. Pangalawa, anode. Ito ay ang negatibong electrode na naglalabas ng mga electron papunta sa external circuit. Sa proseso ng electrochemical reaction, ang anode ay nag-o-oxidize, ibig sabihin nawawala ang mga electrons mula dito. Kaya't ito ang bahagi na nagbibigay ng mga electron na ginagamit para makapag-produce ng kuryente. So, halimbawa nito ay ang zinc, metallic lithium, at lead.
Ito ay isang dry cell battery na madalas nating ginagamit sa mga remote, flashlight at iba pa. Alamin natin ang mga bahagi nito. Una is yung metal cap. This is the positive terminal of the battery. Next is the carbon rod. This acts as the cathode or positive electrode. It doesn't react but helps collect the electrons. Next is the zinc case. This is the anode or negative electrode and also acts as the outer casing. Next is the manganese oxide. This helps in the chemical reaction to absorb electrons. Moist paste of ammonium chloride. This is the electrolyte which allows ions to move inside the battery. And last is the metal button. This is the negative terminal of the battery. Ang battery ay gumagana sa pamamagitan ng chemical reactions na nagko-convert ng chemical energy into electrical energy. May dalawang pangunahing bahagi ito. Una is yung anode or negatibong terminal or zinc case. Dito, nagaganap ang isang reaction kung saan ang zinc ay nagre-react sa electrolyte at nawawalan ng mga electrons. Ang mga electron ay naiipon sa anode pero hindi sila makakadaan ng direkta sa cathode dahil may separator sa pagitan nila. Next is yung cathode or positibong terminal or carbon rod. Sa cathode, nagaganap ang isang reaksyong chemical kung saan tinatanggap ng manganese dioxide ang electrons. Ang electrons ay gustong pumunta sa cathode, pero para makarating doon, kailangan nilang dumaan sa external circuit wire na nakakonekta sa device tulad ng flashlight or remote. Kapag isinara ang circuit, halimbawa, binuksan mo ang flashlight, magsisimulang dumaloy ang electrons mula sa anode patungo sa cathode sa pamamagitan ng wire. Ang daloy ng electrons na ito ang nagpo-produce ng electric current na nagpapagana sa mga devices. Sa loob ng battery, ang ions naman ang gumagalaw sa electrolyte para mapanatili ang balance ng charge. Kapag naubos na ang chemical na sangkap sa anode at cathode, hindi na makakagawa ng kuryente ang battery. Kaya ito either itatapon kung disposable or nire-recharge kung rechargeable. Do not get misled. We have different battery types. Different battery types have different chemical reaction. Hydrogen fuel cell. It works similar to a battery. Here how it goes. During operation, hydrogen and oxygen are being supplied on the anode and cathode side respectively. Here's what happens when this diatomic molecule of hydrogen, referring to the red ball, reacts with this catalyst made of platinum. These hydrogen molecules are being split into two smaller particles, which are protons and electrons. Those smaller particles are heading towards the cathode. But here is a little bit of twist by moving the illustration. Once again, we have mentioned that the two particles are heading towards the cathode. But this portion, proton exchange membrane, only allows protons to pass into it while blocking the electrons. This is why electrons are forced to take a different path, which is the connecting wire, anode to cathode consisting of a certain load. What happens next on the side of the cathode is that the protons that pass on this portion or proton exchange membrane and the electrons that passes through this wire with the load unites on the side of the cathode. With the aid of catalyst, it is being combined with diatomic molecules of oxygen, producing a byproduct which is water vapor. As we can see, this fuel cell is now working just like a battery, providing the continuous flow of electron, supplying a direct current on a certain load as long as there is a sample supply of hydrogen and oxygen. Remember, the byproduct of this fuel cell, which is water vapor, we are going to have through discussion of it on the succeeding slide.
Fuel cell vehicles use hydrogen to generate electricity, emitting only water as a byproduct. Hydrogen enters the anode where a catalyst splits it into protons and electrons. The protons pass through a polymer electrolyte membrane or PEM, while the electrons create electricity via an external circuit. At the cathode, oxygen from the air combines with the protons and electrons, forming water. This clean process enables long-range travel and quick refueling, making fuel cell vehicles a sustainable alternative to combustion engines, reducing fossil fuel dependence and emissions. Two tanks for hydrogen and oxygen. As we all know, hydrogen is to be supplied of the anode side of the hydrogen fuel cell, while the oxygen is to be supplied on the cathode side. Actually, to achieve a grid quality output, we need around 8,000 of hydrogen fuel cell within a typical hydrogen power plant. Continuing the process, during the operation, the byproduct of a hydrogen fuel cell is water. Water is a very clear substance which doesn't cause any pollution. Since hydrogen fuel cell works like a battery, the output is direct current. That is why an inverter is needed in order to convert the direct current into alternating current. To avoid further losses due to a very long transmission line in a power grid, this is to be connected in the step-up transformer to the substation to be sent out towards the grid. Hydrogen fuel cell working principle. Fuel cells generate electricity like batteries but don't require recharging. They work as long as fuel is supplied. A hydrogen fuel cell consists of an anode, cathode, and an electrolyte. Hydrogen enters the anode where a catalyst splits it into protons and electrons. The electrons create an electric current by traveling through an external circuit, while the protons pass through the electrolyte to the cathode. There, they combine with oxygen and electrons to form water and release heat, making fuel cells a clean and efficient energy source.
Ano nga ba ang kagandahan ng hydrogen power plant at kailangan pang pag-aralan at mag-research tungkol dito? Hydrogen is a very difficult fuel source, capable of producing more energy per pound of fuel than gasoline. Nowadays, alam naman natin ngayon yung hydrogen-powered car. And of course, we have a lot of cars powered by gasoline. Kapag pinagkumpara natin yung dalawa, na same volume ng gasoline and same volume ng hydrogen, mas malayo nung nararating ng hydrogen-powered. That is being showed within the previous studies. Kaya kapag sa efficiency issues, check na check ang hydrogen-powered. Fuel cells have much lower emissions than combustion engines. This is very obvious. Katulad ng discuss kanina, yung byproduct ng hydrogen fuel cell is actually water. Well, the combustion engines, which is powered by gasoline or diesel, ang daming pollutants na byproduct doon. Kaya when it comes to emission, check na check pa rin ang hydrogen-powered. And also, fuel cells are quiet during operation as they have fewer moving parts. Yung fuel cells daw ay tahimik lang during operation dahil meron lang siyang fewer na moving parts. Those are the main ingredients of an ideal power plant. Efficiency does not cause any pollution. At the same time, quiet operation. Kapag ganyan yung power plant, kahit maraming residente sa tabi niyan, okay lang yan. Kasi nga, hindi siya maingay, hindi pa siya nagpo-produce ng pollution. Kaya, yun yung dahilan sa lahat ng mga sinabi ko, maganda talaga ang hydrogen power plant.
So why it hasn't gone mainstream? Even though ang dami nitong advantages and maganda yung power plant na ito. So ngayon kasi, onti pa lang hydrogen power plant na nag-ooperate and nasa trial pa siya and observation. With that being said, yung overall operation ng power plant, hindi pa siya perfect. Marami pang need i-improve and i-research yung mga scientists and engineers tulad ng hydrogen production through methane and through water. And the cost, hydrogen storage, and hydrogen leak na ipapaliwanag sa mga susunod na slide. Hydrogen production through methane. About 95% of hydrogen today is produced by a process called steam reforming. So, when we talk about steam reforming, ito yung paghihiwalay ng hydrogen atoms from carbon atoms sa methane. So, it is expensive and it releases greenhouse gases. So, nagko-contribute siya sa global warming, thereby canceling out any benefits to the environment. Ito yung pinaka-common na method. Pero ngayon meron ngayon dinidevelop na technology na nag-aim to produce hydrogen with fewer greenhouse gas emission, which is yung methane pyrolysis. Pangalawa naman is hydrogen production through water. The other production method is electrolysis, which separates hydrogen from water. The downside is that expensive din to. For hydrogen to reach its full potential as an energy source, scientists needs to figure out a way to produce it inexpensively from clean, renewable sources. Producing hydrogen from water essentially means splitting the water molecule H2O into its constituent parts, hydrogen H2 and oxygen O2. The most prominent way to do this is a process called electrolysis. Yung process na to, gumagamit ng electricity para i-split yung water. An electric current is passed through the water. This causes the water molecules to break apart. Tapos, marirelease na dun yung hydrogen gas at one electrode and oxygen gas at the another. Next is cost. Nabanggit nga kanina sa hydro production through methane and water na expensive yung process and naghahanap pa lang ng alternatives para maging inexpensive or less expensive yung magiging process. Tapos, yung gagamitin nating mga materials like yung sa catalyst, ang gamit kasi doon is platinum, which is very expensive. And then, yung cost ng fuel cells, mataas din. So, to be able to produce mag-produce ng enough electricity, kailangan natin ng thousands of fuel cells. Ang isa nga nito is expensive na. So, kailangan natin ng malaking budget for this power plant.
Hydrogen storage. So, scientists are still struggling with the challenge of how to store hydrogen. This is because hydrogen has such a low energy density. So, hydrogen needs to be kept under strong compression to be a viable fuel source, necessitating strong tanks and heavy-duty fueling lines. So, as there is no currently mainstream system of storage and distribution for hydrogen fuel, this is a major practical disadvantage. So, if you are going to research further, data shows that there is still no major manufacturer who are willing to mass produce this type of tanks that are exclusively for hydrogen. So those companies who are just starting to build a small hydrogen power plant, still they are on the prototyping stage. So that is why this is a major practical disadvantage. So hydrogen leakage can occur during many steps of its production and use. Science magazine reported in June 2003 that hydrogen leakage from widespread use of hydrogen fuel would gobble up ozone faster than CFCs do. So during the operation and during the extraction process, hydrogen leak is possible. So once it occurs, one major distraction that this leak could create is that the depletion of ozone layer. So, napag-usapan naman na noong high school, ang nakaka-deplete ng ozone layer ay yung chlorofluorocarbons or what we call CFC. Mas malala nga lang yung epekto ng hydrogen sa ozone layer depletion kaysa doon sa CFC. Now, let's proceed with the latest development in hydrogen power plant. So first, we have the Long Range Energy Generation Project. So this is touted as a first of its kind power plant in the United States. The Long Range Energy Generation Project is a 485 megawatts facility being equipped to run on a mix of natural gas and a carbon-free hydrogen. Is nearing completion at the site of a former aluminum smelter on the banks of the Ohio River. So, the facility first will burn a fuel blend that includes 5% hydrogen in a General Electric Company H-class gas turbine. So, the plant is intended to transition to 100% green hydrogen over the next decade by relying increasingly on renewable energy to power electrolysis machines that splits water into its hydrogen and oxygen elements, according to Herring at year 2021. So, as we can see, only 5% of a hydrogen is the contributing factor in the 485 megawatts facility. From that standpoint, we can still say that this project, when it comes to using green hydrogen, is still at its prototyping or trial stage. So, although it says here that the company is planning to have a transition which will use 100% green hydrogen over the next decades, scientists and engineers are still skeptic whether this project will materialize. So for that, we can say that hydrogen power plant is still on its exploration stage. So next we have Siemens Energy. Construction begins on world's largest green hydrogen power plant, part of unique baseload solar project. So Siemens Energy will operate the unique 170 million euro facility in a remote part of French Guiana, which will provide a 10 megawatt of power during the day and 3 megawatt at night. So, a unique baseload renewable project that combines the world's largest hydrogen power plant with a 16 megawatt machine for electrolysis of water. So, a 3 megawatt fuel cell, 55 megawatt of solar panels, and 20 megawatt per 38 megawatt per hour of batteries has begun construction in French Guiana, according to Collins at year 2021. So Siemens Energy, this power plant actually offers a very little capacity when it comes to fuel cell. So the hydrogen fuel cell here rated at 3 megawatts. So majority of this power plant output comes from the solar panel, which is 55 megawatts, and 20 megawatts from its reserve capacity. So this is the set of batteries. So once again, from the standpoint, we can say that this project is still at its trial stage when it comes to using hydrogen energy. With that being said, it is fair to conclude that developers and researchers of hydrogen power plants still have a lot of works to be done in order to propel this type of power plant to its peak performance.
Hello and welcome. Today we're exploring the exciting world of renewable energy with a special focus on one of the most groundbreaking and sustainable solutions for our future, which is the solar power. As we dig deeper, let's start with the question, what are solar power plants? Ang solar power plants ay gumagamit ng mga sinag ng araw para makagawa ng kuryente. May dalawang uri ito, which is the photovoltaic system. Ang sistemang ito ay gumagamit ng enerhiya mula sa araw at kino-convert ito into electricity gamit ang solar panels. So tatandaan, solar panels. Kapag ang sunlight ay tumama sa mga solar panels, nag-generate ito ng kuryente na pwede gamitin sa mga bahay o iba't ibang klaseng negosyo. Pangalawa, solar thermal system. So ito na pag-aralan na. Sa sistemang ito naman, gumagamit ng mga salamin or mirrors para kolektahin ang enerhiya mula sa araw. Ang mga mirrors na ito ay iniinit ang isang fluid, yung HTF nga na tinatawag natin. Pagkatapos, ang fluid na ito ay ipinapasa ang init sa tubig na nagiging superheated steam. Ang pressure mula sa steam ang nagpapagalaw sa turbine para mag-generate ng kuryente. Dahil napag-aralan na natin kamakailan ang solar thermal system, dito tayo magpo-focus sa photovoltaic system. Ito ang pinakakaraniwang uri ng solar panel na madalas natin makita. Karaniwan, makikita ito sa ibabaw ng mga bubong. So, pati yung mga calculator ngayon, may maliit na solar cell na pati na rin yung mga street lights na pinapalakas ng solar power sa umaga. So, may dalawang uri ng solar panels. Yung monocrystalline, ito yung mga solar panels na kulay itim. Karaniwan, mas efficient sila at mas mahal kumpara sa ibang o sa isang uri na which is yung color blue naman. So, yun yung tinatawag na polycrystalline. Ito naman yung mga solar panels na mura pero mas mababa ang efficiency kumpara sa kulay itim, which is the monocrystalline. So, here are the components of solar cell. About the first picture, we have aluminum frame, tempered glass, encapsulant EVA, EVA means ethylene vinyl acetate, then solar cells. Then again, encapsulant EVA, backsheet, then the junction box. So for the second picture, it's basically the same, but this one is more general, while the other one is more specific. So here, we have the glass, which is usually present, anti-reflection coating, metal grid, silicon, the N-type and P-type, and metal plate. To further elaborate on what happens inside the solar cell, my other group mates will discuss it later.
How do solar cells work? So let us start on the first thing that is happening inside a solar cell when sunlight strikes it. For maximum efficiency to occur, the solar panel must absorb as many energy as it can from the sun. The more energy it absorbs, the more energy it can supply. How do solar cell works? Solar cell converts sunlight into electrical energy. Ngayon, alam naman natin na mentras mas madami yung enerhiya na makukuha, mas marami yung kuryente na pro-produce. Here is the thing. Somewhere around 5% of energy from the sun is already lost due to reflection once it hit the glass, which is the top layer. So bakit nga ba natin pinag-uusapan yung efficiency when it comes to collecting energy from the sun? So once the sun rays strike, the topmost part of the solar panel, which is the tempered glass, around 5% of the sun's energy is already lost due to reflection. The energy being lost due to reflection, that is where the second layer comes into play. To avoid further losses of sun's energy upon entering the glass, this is where the anti-reflection coating comes into play. So these are the scenario to be avoided to prevent losses due to reflection. So this happens when coating is incorrect. With the right amount of coating, the reflected energy can be minimized if not totally cancelled. Anti-reflection coating lets the light in, but mostly it doesn't let the light to be reflected out. It also makes some of the reflected light to get back. Certain manipulation is being done during manufacturing to achieve that characteristic. Maybe some of you will ask, what if just let the light strike the silicon junction without any more barriers on top? Pwede kaya na pag tatanggalin na lang yung mga nasa ibabaw na yan at i-expose na lang yung silicon junction para direct na siyang i-absorb ng sunlight? Hindi pwede kasi mas malaking magiging losses kapag directly in-expose yung silicon sa sunlight. That is why there is layers protecting the silicon as well as minimizing the reflection. So the silicon, being a semiconductor, is a bit shiny. Exposing it directly to sunlight may lose about 30% of sun's energy due to reflection. How do solar cells work? Now, here's the question. What's the main thing that is happening inside a solar cell or photovoltaic cell that is why it is able to produce electricity when sunlight strikes it? Let us first define what photovoltaic effect is. The photovoltaic effect is the generation of voltage and electric current in a material upon exposure to light. It is a physical and chemical phenomenon. To achieve the photovoltaic effect, we need a material which, when struck by sunlight, will exhibit some characteristic of a conductor.
So what is happening inside a copper conductor when there is no presence of voltage across it? its valence electron is free to move, transferring from one atom to another in random. So, this freedom of movement allows the material to conduct electricity efficiently. So, as the electrons can carry charge throughout the substance, consequently, materials with freely moving valence electrons, such as copper or metals, they are often excellent conductors of electricity. So this property is crucial in the design and functionality of electrical circuits, enabling the flow of current that powers countless devices and technologies in everyday life. That particular characteristics of a conductor where there are a number of electrons that moves freely is what should be attained to exhibit the photovoltaic effect. So this is where the silicon semiconductor comes into play when it comes to exhibiting the photovoltaic effect. So when the silicon semiconductor absorbs energy from the sun, the photons which the sunlight have would knock an electron out of its orbit within an atom, making it free to move within the system in random. So now let's proceed with lattice structure of silicon atom forming a covalent bond with 4 neighboring atoms. First, ano nga ba yung covalent bond? Ang covalent bond, ito yung bond being formed in a pair of electron. So, sa silicon atom, kapag ang isang silicon tinamaan ng sikat ng araw, this type of silicon is being manipulated in the manufacturing site so that it will exhibit this type of characteristic. Kapag tinamaan siya ng sikat ng araw, ang nangyayari sa kanya is that the photons within the sunlight has the tendency to knock the electron out of its orbit. Merong mga electron dyan sa orbit ng silicon ang mawawala kasi nga it is being knocked out by the photons which is being contained on the energy coming from the sunlight. To demonstrate you kung paano nangyari inside the solar panel, kapag sinisikatan na siya ng araw, ito yun. So, that particular electron is being knocked out of its orbit. If this happens, it is now begin to move in random within the system because of sunlight. So, anong part ng sunlight ang nakapag-knock out sa orbit? Ito yung photons. So, maraming energy ang meron ng sun. So, it contains ultraviolet ray, visible light, and infrared ray. So, among these three, the one that contains the photon is the visible light. So, photons is the one that knocks out the electron out of its orbit. So, things that is needed to be achieved by the silicon semiconductor. First, it should have the same characteristic with conductor, and second, it should have the same characteristic with battery.
How do solar cell works? Solar cells are typically made of semiconductor materials, madalas is silicon. These materials have unique electrical properties that allow them to facilitate the conversion of sunlight into electricity. Yung silicons na to ay this silicon is treated or doped so that they have a positive negative layer. Positive and negative layer, so parang batteries. Ano nga ba yung characteristic ng batteries? Dapat merong imbalance of charges sa both sides. Pag sinabi natin imbalance of charges, both sides should exhibit positive and negative charge. So, kailangan itong silicon na to magkaroon ng positive and negative charge. Para ma-achieve yan ng silicon, we need to add other substance, or ang tawag sa process na ito is doping. Meaning, magkakaroon siya ng P2N junction, positive side and negative side. Atom that exhibits a positive charge, tawag doon is proton. Negatively charged naman, electron. To create a negative side, you need more electron. Kapag naman positive side, kailangan mo ng mas maraming proton. So, yung solar cells, tinatawag din siyang photovoltaic cells. Ito ay gawa sa semiconductor materials na kadalasan is silicon. Kapag yung sunlight tumama sa materials na to, it will knock electrons loose from their atoms. Then, yung movement ng electrons, magke-create siya ng electrical current, which is yun yung nagpo-produce ng electricity. Kaya nagagamit natin yung solar cells sa renewable energy. So, yung process na to, una doon is light absorption. So, yung sunlight nga, na gawa sa particles called photons, mag-strike siya sa solar cells. So, doon, i-absorb na ng solar panel yung light. Ngayon, magkakaroon ng electron movement. Yung energy galing sa photons, magkukos sa electrons sa silicon na mag-break sa atoms. So, sa pagka-create naman ng current, yung solar cell, dinesign siya na may electric field na nagpo-force sa electron na ma-free tapos mag-flow sa specific direction. So, yung flow ng electron is an electrical current. Ngayon, sa pagko-collect naman ng electricity, meron metal contacts sa solar cells na nagko-collect ng electrical current, which can be used to power devices. Kaya nagamit itong solar cells sa pag-produce ng electricity or sa planta. Nagagamit siya sa power plant. So, in simple terms, isipin natin na yung sunlight, nag-bump siya sa electrons. Tapos yung mga electrons na to, na gumagalaw, nagkakreate siya ng electricity. So, ano nga bang substance yung kailangan natin gamitin as dopant para sa silicon para maging negatively charged siya or positively charged? Sa negative type or sa N-type side, phosphorus yung gagamitin natin as doping materials. While on the P-type side, it's boron. So, pagdating naman sa pagdodope ng silicon, para ma-alter natin yung electrical properties niya, yung substance na ginagamit natin is depende kung ano yung gusto nating mangyari sa kanya. Kung gusto ba natin siya maging positively charged or negatively charged na semiconductor. So, sa positive type na silicon o positively charged, yung elements from group 3 of the periodic table, yun yung ginagamit. These elements yung elements na to, meron siyang 3 valence electrons. Kadalasan ginagamit dito is boron. So, paano nga ba nangyayari? Kapag yung element na to is nadagdag sa silicon, which is meron siyang 4 na valence electron, magke-create siya ng hole. Tapos magka-create siya ng hole sa silicon crystal lattice. So, yung holes na to, nag-a-act siya as positively charged carriers. Sa N-type silicon naman, or negatively charged, yung dopant dito is meron siyang 5 valence electrons. So, yung mga common examples dito na ginagamit is phosphorus. Paano ba nangyayari yun? Kapag yung elements na to is inadani sa silicon, mag-i-introduce siya ng extra electrons sa crystal lattice. So, yung extra electrons na to, mag-a-act siya as negative charge carriers. So, dun na magiging negatively charged yung silicon. So, yung doping process, inaalaw tayo to precisely control the conductivity of silicon by adding specific impurities. So, silicon, atomic number niya is 14. Ang goal natin is maka-exhibit ng quality ng battery or characteristic ng battery sa silicon na may positive and negative side. Gagawa ngayon tayo ng negative side. We need the dopant for it to become negatively charged. So, pwede natin gamitin yung phosphorus na dopant para sa negative side. Kapag mag-create ng positive side, dapat mas konti yung electron. Anong element ang pwede? Pwede yung aluminum, pero masyadong malaki yung atomic number niya, which is 13. Kailangan maghanap ng mas maliit na element na pwedeng ipasok within the lattice structure ng silicon. Ano yung pwede na element na to? Pwede dito is boron. With boron being a small element, there will be a less effort in order to inject that into the lattice structure of silicon. So, lattice structure of silicon with phosphorus as dopants. Doping with phosphorus, doping involves intentionally adding impurities like phosphorus to the silicon crystal to alter its electrical properties. So, phosphorus have 5 valence electrons, while yung silicon naman merong 4. When phosphorus atom replace a silicon atom in the lattice, 4 of the phosphorus valence electrons form covalent bond with the surrounding silicon atoms. The 5th valence electron is extra and free siya to move. Because this extra electron is negatively charged, silicon dope with phosphorus is called N-type silicon. N is for negative. The basic silicon-latine structure remains largely intact. Phosphorus amongst phosphorus atoms introduce extra electrons, making the silicon more conductive. This is the basis of N-type semiconductor materials. Next is lattice structure of the silicon with boron as dopant. When we discuss the lattice structure of silicon doped with boron, we're looking for how the introduction of boron atoms alter the pure silicon crystal. So, boron as dopant, boron is a group 3 element, meaning it has 3 valence electrons. When a boron atom replaces a silicon atoms in the crystal lattice, it forms covalent bond with only 3 surrounding silicon atoms. This leaves one bond missing, an electron, creating a hole. So, yung hole na to, meron siyang positive charge, making silicon dope with boron P-type. P-type silicon. P for positive. Boron doping creates holes in the silicon lattice which act as positive charge carriers. These create P-type semiconductor for material.
Kapag sinandwich natin yung dalawang side na kinreate natin, eto na yung discarding ginagawa doon sa silicon junction sa solar panel. Kapag sinandwich natin yung dalawa, diba, sa side ng phosphorus, diba, maraming free electron doon. Samantala naman, sa may boron side, yung P side, madaming holes. Yung holes meaning parang sabik sila sa electron. Ngayon, kapag pinagdikit, there will be an electron rush coming from the N side to P side. Kaya ang outcome, sa dami ng electron na nawala sa ating N side or phosphorus, magiging positive na yung karamihan ng phosphorus. Sa dami ng electron na napunta sa ating P side or boron, yung mga boron magiging negative na siya. Nagkaiba ngayon ng charge yung magkabilang side because of sandwiching the PN junction. Take note of the word slightly. Kung kanina negative ang phosphorus, ngayon naging slightly positive dahil madaming electron ang nawala sa kanya. Ngayon, kapag nangyari yon, split of a second lang, there will be depletion region. Depletion region, ito yung region na walang free electron, wala rin na holes. bakante kung tutuusin. Tapos itong depletion region, it will form as a barrier. Wala nang makakatawid dyan na free electron. Mag-stop muna yung process. Nakapag-create na ulit tayo ng battery out of this. Kaya lang, slide pa lang. Slightly positive and slightly negative side. Kapag nangyari yon, there will be the presence of electric field. This rush of electrons will quickly form a barrier between the two sides called depletion region. In here, equilibrium is being reached, then electron stops flowing. An electric field is definitely created. The silicon junction is now exhibiting a characteristic of a battery. Kapag tumama ang sikat ng araw dun sa itaas, anong junction ulit yung nasa taas? N-side or P-side? N-side nasa taas. Phosphorus siya naging positive lang kasi nawalan siya ng electron nung sinandwich. Magpe-penetrate siya sa N-side. Makakarating siya doon sa depletion region. Diba kapag nasikatan ng araw yung mga silicon na nandyan sa N-side na couple with phosphorus, diba ang photon is capable of knocking out electrons, making it free to move. Electrons being knocked will accumulate on the depletion region. At the same time, yung mga holes being created due to the presence of sunlight, mag-accumulate ngayon sa depletion region. That is in perfect pair. Kung ilan yung holes na nag-accumulate, ganun din kadami yung free electron na mag-accumulate dyan sa gitna, which is the depletion region. Ngayon, due to the presence of electric field on this junction, yung na-accumulate na holes at free electrons na yan sa gitna, babalik yan sa kung saan talaga sila, kabilang. Yung mga free electrons belong sa taas, while yung holes, mga bands na kulang sa electron sa baba. Coming back to original form. Kapag nabalik na ng electric field sa original form, there will be a high volume of free electrons dito sa N-side. Diba, ang hinahanap ng free electrons, holes. Ngayon, kapag nag-connect ng load sa magkabilang side, that is the time that those free electrons will travel from the N-side toward the P-side. Sunlight enters the N-type side, then penetrates the depletion region. This process knocks an electron out of the band, as many as it can, creating a pair of free electron and holes in the depletion region. The electric field drives the pair out of the depletion region. The free electron goes into the N-type side and holes in the P-type side, resulting in higher concentration of both. Kapag naglagay ng connecting wire tapos meron kang load, electron will travel from negative to positive. Yung pag-travel niya, makikita na unidirectional din. That is why it is generating a direct current. When loads are being connected to both sides, electrons from the N-type being begins to flow, recombining with holes toward the P-type side. We all know that this unidirectional flow of electrons is a direct current.
Ngayon, tingnan naman natin ang parts ng solar cell. Sa taas ay usually makikita natin ay yung glass. Yung taas na makita natin, parang siyang gawa sa glass. Ngayon, sunod naman dito ay yung anti-reflection coating. Then, yung metal grid naman ang susunod. Yung metal grid na yan ay para siyang net, pero mas malalaki yung space niya. Ito man, sunod sa metal grid ay ang N-type. Ang sunod naman sa N-type, ang P-type. At ang huli, ang metal plate. Ngayon, kung titingnan natin, yung N-side or N-type side ay nasa taas siya. Yung P-type naman ay nasa baba. Sa ngayon, mayroong mga naglalabas ang mga design na ngayon ay yung P-type yung nasa taas. Kumpara dun sa una kong sinabi na N-type yung nasa taas. Ngayon, yung P-type na nasa taas na yun na lumalabas ngayon ay iba ng principle yun. Kaya, dito tayo ngayon sa basic. Diba, kailangan magkaroon ng connecting wires mula sa N side papunta doon sa P side. Base sa sinabi ko kanina, so, ano nga ba yung magko-connect doon? Yan ang tanong. Itong metal grid kasi na to, ito yung nagsiserve as a conductor na nagko-connect ng N side towards the metal plate. Mula sa metal plate na nasa ilalim na yan, may connecting wires dyan papuntang metal grid sa taas. Dahil doon, magko-connect ngayon yung dalawa. Yun yung pupunta sa load natin ngayon. So, ito pa ang isang tanong. Bakit yung sa ilalim, metal plate? Bakit buo yun? Samantalang yung nasa taas ay metal grid. Or metal grid, yung butas-butas siya. Bakit nga ba ganun? Siyempre, simple lang yan. Sa taas. Kaya dapat ay metal grid ito para makapasok yung sunlight. Kasi, siyempre, kung metal plate yan, yung sunlight hindi papasok. Mabablock lang siya ng metal plate. Hindi siya papasok na unlikely dun sa may metal grid na butas-butas na nakakapasok freely yung sunlight. Dito naman ngayon, kapag pinag-uusapan yung kapal ng top side ng silicon junction, manipis yon. Yung manipis na yon ay heavily doped yon. Meaning, manipis siya pero madaming dopants at madaming dopants ang present. Mas marami yung bilang ng phosphorus kaysa sa bilang ng boron dito sa baba. Nakikita natin dyan sa may picture. Yung nasa baba, dun yung may boron. Sa taas naman, yung mayroong phosphorus. Ngayon, ano yung magiging outcome kapag ginamit natin yun? Ito lang yan. Yung chemical reaction na may dudulot ng ganyang technique, ganito yung mangyayari. Pag mas marami yung phosphorus, mas maluwag yung magiging depletion region. Kapag naging mas maluwag yung depletion region, edi yung pair ng free electron saka yung mga hole ay mag-scatter siya in a wider area. Na nagsiresulta magiging mas kalat siya kapag nangyari yon. Mas makakapag-produce ng mas mataas na amount of electricity ang buong system kapag nangyari yung nagiging mas kalat yung pair ng electron at saka ng hole. Ginagawang mas manipis ang heavily doped yung N-side kaysa sa P-side. Kaya kapag nagbulat-lat tayo ng solar panel, makikita natin yun na mas manipis yung N-side kumpara doon sa P-side. Practically, in a solar panel, the top layer, which is the N-type side, is thin and heavily doped, while the bottom P-type side is thick and lightly doped. This results into bigger depletion region, thus free electron and hole pair is being generated in a wider area, which in turn produce more electricity. Ito yan. Practically, yung solar panel natin, yung top layer niya ay N-type. Yung N-type na yan ay manipis lang yan at ito ay heavily doped. Habang yung bottom side naman natin, P-type yung nakalagay doon. Yung P-type naman na yan, thick yan at lightly doped naman siya. Dahil dito, nagre-result siya sa mas malaking depletion region. Ngayon, yung mga free electron at hole na pair na yan, nag-generate siya sa wider area at nagre-resulta ng nakakapag-produce ito ng mas madaming electricity. Ito naman tayo ngayon. Sunlight will strike the solar panel. Alam naman na natin ang nangyayari sa loob ng solar panel, di ba? Yung sikat ng araw, pumupunta siya sa solar panel. Ngayon, ito ang tanong. Ano nga bang klaseng electricity ang nage-generate dito? Direct current ba or alternating current? Ang sagot dyan, direct current. Direct current ang napoproduce nito. Ngayon, yung grid natin, AC yun. Hindi siya pwede lagyan ng DC kasi magkakaloko-loko lang yung system na yan kapag nagpasok tayo ng DC dahil sa grid natin, puro AC yung mga nakakonect na generator, yan. Ngayon, kailangan i-convert yung DC papunta sa AC. Ko-connect ngayon yung group of solar panel na yan into a inverter. Yung inverter na yan, siya yung magko-convert ng DC output into AC. Ngayon, yung DC output natin na napoproduce ng solar panel, magiging AC ngayon. Ngayon, i-connect naman natin yung sa AC service panel at the same time doon sa AC utility meters. For the sake of regulation and monitoring, i-step up ngayon yan. Kasi kailangan ng step up transformer para ma-prevent natin yung further losses ng electricity. So, bakit nga ba nagkakaroon ng further losses ng electricity? Dahil yan sa mahabang transmission line. Yan, usually, take note the word usually. The system is being stepped up to 13.8 kilovolts. Pero depende pa rin yan sa rating. Ngayon, makokonek ngayon to sa substation. Then, makokonek ulit siya sa substation na nagsusupply sa power utility. Ngayon, yung power utility naman, siya yung magsusupply or magdi-distribute ngayon sa mga bahay-bahay ng electricity. Step-up transformers are required to boost the 480 to 690 volts inverter's output voltage to the 13.8 kilovolts to 46 kilovolts of the medium voltage utility network. It is then connected to a substation for distribution into residential area. When installed at a site, solar modules are wired together in series to form strings, and strings of modules are connected in parallel when necessary to form an array. Ngayon, ang step-up transformers ay kailangan para itaas natin yung voltahe mula sa 480 hanggang 690 volts galing sa mga inverters. Ngayon, patungo naman ito sa 13.8 hanggang 46 kilovolts para sa medium voltage utility network. Ngayon, ito ay kukonekta ngayon sa substation para maipamahagi sa mga bahay-bahay. Ngayon, kapag ikinakabit ang solar module sa isang lugar, pinagsama-sama ito sa series para bumuo ng strings. Ang mga strings naman ay pinagsasama-sama ngayon na nakaparallel para bumuo ng array. Ngayon, sa traditional na photovoltaic power plant, isang sentralisadong inverter ang nagbibigay ng kinakailangang voltahe